Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Hello, and welcome. It's such a privilege and an honor to be here with you today on the 20th episode of the Conscious Communion. I really wanted to use this time as an opportunity to share what the ride's been like, to be transparent, to be vulnerable, and to offer a sense of belonging and community to the deeper aspects of what it's like to create something, what it's like to be an artist, what it's like to be in the feeling of discomfort as you create, right? I know that we all go through that, whatever it may be that we're trying to put forth in the world. There's a sense of discomfort and stagnancy that rides along with that process. And I really just wanted to use this time to drop in, share with you what's been going on in my life. I think the relativity aspect of having check-ins is really important and vital to what the mission is for this podcast, right? I'm the host, I'm the space holder, and I think that it's important to share aspects of myself so that y'all can know I'm a real human. It's not all shiny. Not everything is glamorous, right? Winter was fucking hard. This winter took me through hell and back. And here we are. And I really just wanted to share this time and space with you to let you in a little bit. Obviously, I'm not going to expose everything because that's for me and me alone, those parts of myself. And having boundaries is vital to this work, whatever that work may be, right? And I really, again, just wanted to let you in on what feels safe for me, what feels relevant, what feels activating, and what potentially feels ever present in this aspect for others to feel embodied in their own craft, whatever that may be, and to put forth whatever work that may be. It's not comfortable to put our art out in the world, to use our voice, to share our truth. It's not comfortable in any way, shape, or form. However, I believe that we all have a gift. I believe that we all have the unique capability to use what lights us up for good. And so much of this podcast is to enliven that in you. That's my hope. That's my dream. To share that beautiful extension, that hand, and to interweave those aspects of self to another, to inform them that they can do hard things, they can create, they can use their voice, they can speak their truth. And may we all liberate ourselves to know that on such a deep level. So here we are, dropping in. Welcome. Would love to take a couple breaths with you just to land in this space and to honor where we're at today, honor our bodies. And taking another inhale, however feels good for you. Giving it a little wiggle, shaking it out. Yeah, this winter's been hard. And when I posted my first episode, it was 11/12/22, pardon me, November 22nd, 2022. And there was so much that was unknown. There was so much that I didn't know about. I was really learning as I went. And There's so much creativity that can be sparked in the midst of that process. And so much was. It was great. But I was on overload. The beginning was learning so many things, taking in all this knowledge, and it was great. And wanting to, schedule all these incredible conversations. But in the midst of that, there was a lack of boundaries that I was creating for myself. And it was hard to find fluidity and flow within my own daily life because I work a full-time job. So, apart from recording, apart from editing, apart from doing whatever creative work, also I want to do just for my own self, my own, evolve that essentially participates to utilizing my voice in this space. It all counts for something. And the rituals that I enact in my daily life are necessary. So it was almost too strategic and there was not a lot of wiggle room. And I was really trying to find that flexibility and that liberation because essentially that's what I was looking for. But in creating too tight of a schedule, I wasn't finding that freedom and that flexibility that I was actually seeking as I was trying to speak my truth, as I was trying to embark on this path of freedom for extending my craft and my art and my voice and my truth and my story out into the world. So, a process it's been. Listening to yourself is also not the most exciting thing you can do. It can be at times, but it can be really challenging to hear yourself back recorded. You definitely have some cringy moments of, damn it, I wish I didn't say that, or fuck, I say like a lot because I say like a lot. And being conscious and attuned to those things that you don't like, and then to hear yourself maybe in the next episode doing the same thing over. And someone who has struggled with this idea of perfectionism, whatever perfectionism actually is, it's been super, super grounding for me to just allow these conversations to happen, just allow my voice to carry and allow these conversations to flow as they're intended to flow, and just let go of the expectation aspect of all of it has been just so juicy. There's been so much nectar in the midst of that for me because it's the it's the antithesis to what my ideas of what this would be like would be, right? Like, you want it to be perfect, you want it to be crisp, you want it to be clean, you want the recording and the technology to work as it's intended to. Doesn't always happen. It's just like paints. You're not always going to get you're not always going to get the product that you're looking for when you're putting paints to paper. You're not always going to get that in photography when you're shooting film. I just started shooting film, and that's been such a pleasure. So invigorating and so exciting. And I'm so very much loving that expression for myself because I've loved shooting and taking pictures forever. But shooting film, it's such a dance between the waiting game, right? You just got to wait and see, and picking up light in certain ways and playing with the different aspects of the camera and figuring it all out. It's been very much the same process for me in this with the podcast. And there's been so many episodes where I hear myself, I hear myself, and I'm so uncomfortable when I listen to it and I hear myself, but it's me. It's me. And I know that there's been parts of myself where I can hear a a lack of confidence and a sense of frustration from whatever my day may be held that day, or but still creating anyways, still having those conversations anyways. And maybe the next person doesn't see that, but they may feel it. And I think it's important for me to be conscious on the energy that I'm emitting. So there's also been this intention that's happened since hearing those things within myself, where, all right, I'm scheduling these conversations in a more productive way so I can find time to actually ground, to breathe, or do whatever feels good to fill my cup. Because again, I work a full-time job. Oftentimes these conversations are after I've worked a full day. So not always, that's not always the case, but it's interesting to notice a difference when I actually have the ability to have a full day off and then land in space with someone versus having worked a full day, using my voice all day, helping someone through the technological aspects of working a platform in a database, to then having a fluid conversation about what I care about, what lights me up, community, healing, all the versatile aspects that of life and human existence, right? That's what lights me up. That's what invigorates me. And in the midst of this ebb and flow of hearing myself and feeling uncomfortable, I've also found a deeper truth and knowing in my voice of who I am and what grounds me, what enlivens me, and what my purpose in this life is. My purpose feels so abundantly grounded in connecting amazing individuals. I've always been good at it. I got that from my dad. My dad is an incredible connector and networker. He's, and I too have it. I love interweaving conversations and communities and folks that I've known from this part of my life to that part of my life, and then, you know, also finding other incredible humans that inspire me and then connecting with them and just making this melodic dance of community come alive. And it's been really fun to watch. It's been really fun to see this thing happen, and it's, you know, it's, you obviously want, there's these expectations and these hopes, you want it to just take off and to be huge and whatever, right? Like, and so I've had to sit with myself with that. It's like, why do you want it to be huge? What are you looking for? And I'm just being super honest with you, right? Like, that feels uncomfortable to even say, but I obviously want what I care about to be shared with others. But I know these things take time. And so it's in the patient waiting game of knowing that my conversations are manna for my soul, that they are nectar and sweet honey, just giving me these incredible opportunities to learn more about myself and potentially whoever else is listening some insight into their own life. And that for me has just been so beautiful and so grounding. And it's coming back to that remembrance, is that it's not about that. It's not about that other stuff. Sure, those are perks, but the juice is coming from the authenticity of what you're doing, the authentic space and place of being in alignment with your heart's calling and your heart's desire. And my heart's desire is to love people. It's always been That's always been my heart's desire. Since I was a little girl, I have always loved big. I love people hard and expansively, and I can love anyone. And with that also comes this ability to be misunderstood, right? And to not be known, or not, in more of my experience, it's been this uncomfortable aspect of being perceived one way when you know you're not that way. So we know that perceptions are actually about the other person perceiving those things, right? Like if we take things personally, it's important for us to look at ourselves and to say, okay, well, what is this in me that's making me feel this kind of way? And in the midst of this winter, in the midst of my process, my creative becoming and uncovering and discovering, I went through a really challenging season with some relationships that I had. And it gave me the opportunity to see myself super clearly, more than I ever have in my life, because with this friction that was happening in other outside sourced relationships, there was this opportunity for me to see myself and who I am. And when questions started to rise and perceptions started to be played into this environment of whatever it was, I had to stand in my knowing and in my truth and say, nope, this is who the fuck I am. I know who I am. I know who I've always been. And I am a being that literally just tries to love and love big and love hard each and every single day of my life. For so long, I have looked to Jesus, and that might sound really stupid to a lot of people, but I don't really care. I've fallen in love with the church and I've fallen out of love with the church. And yet, one thing remains true for me and always has, and that's Jesus and the stories that were told of Jesus and the love that he had for people. And I've always wanted to emulate that since I was a little girl. It's making me emotional because I think that I think of the stories of Jesus and loving big and feeling misunderstood. He must have, if he was really fully embodying the human experience as the Bible tells us, which we know the Bible is just it's a beautiful representation of storytelling, right? And that goes for every religious historical text. Storytelling. And Jesus in the stories, in the stories of our past, was a human who loved hard. And I look up to that, and I aim to emulate it every single day of my life. And anyone who really knows me, and I have many that do, I have many friends that know me on such a deep level, have been able to remind me of that. But more importantly, during this season of winter, I was able to remind myself of that, of who I am and who I've always been, and knowing to the depths of my core that I aim to be my best self each and every day. And I'm not sure if y'all have heard of or read the Four Agreements, but the Four Agreements really speak truth to my life, and I've read it multiple times. And you know, the Four Agreements are: don't take things personally. Your word is basically be impeccable with your word. That's what it says verbatim. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And I read that book at least once a year. And I have for the past probably 5 years. And it's been super helpful for me because don't take things personally is number one. And that's like one of the hardest things. I think actually that might be the second that comes into play. But it's really interesting because we have a tendency to take things personally and to make things about us. The world doesn't revolve around us. That's the ego. The ego is looking for us to fill some type of way about whatever it may be. But in taking things personally, we have the tendency to lose sight of what the truth of the matter may actually be. So those four things tend to be really helpful for me in my process. But in some of the challenging things that I went through this winter, I was given the opportunity to reinvestigate these aspects of myself that were feeling really uncomfortable for me. I wasn't feeling enough. I was feeling kind of lonely. I wasn't feeling seen. I wasn't feeling known. And I know I have friends and community that deeply know me and deeply love me and that will always be there to support me. But being in Portland, Oregon, and having not being connected with those people that deeply know me and deeply see me in the aspect of vicinity, right? Like I'm not close to them. I can't necessarily just get on a plane whenever I want and go see them. It was challenging. It was challenging not to be in close quarters with those folks. But it gave me the opportunity to sit with myself in those uncomfortable moments of not feeling seen or understood, and really get to see and understand myself on the deepest levels, like the deepest levels. And there's been such a process for me. In 2021, I had a back injury, and that created a lot of discomfort and dis-ease within my body, and wasn't feeling safe in my body after that injury. I had an injury in 2019 with my psoas that I just don't think ever was actually fully healed. The psoas is the muscle of the soul, and it really kickstarted my spiritual evolution into a it kickstarted this rampant thing that was already happening. It was in the midst of in the happening. I had been kind of going through my own spiritual evolving process for the past 8 years prior, but because of that injury, I really had to slow down. I really had to utilize new tools to come in close contact with my anxiety. Because prior to that, I was utilizing exercise as an escape. And utilizing exercise as an escape was actually aggravating my nervous system even more. And so that happened in 2019. So I started doing yoga, and I started breathing, and I started really getting in touch with meditation, and it was really great, really helpful. But there was still so much work that had to be done. I was going to therapy, so that was helpful as well. But Fast forward to 2021, I really hadn't been lifting in that time frame from 2019 to 2001. And I started working physically at a job where I was lifting things and hadn't been doing that for 6 years and started doing it again in 2021. Months in, I hurt my back and find out I have 3 slip discs, or not slip discs, I'm sorry, herniated discs, not slipped. That's way worse. And with that, I went through this full on process. And this was after breathing and after really uncovering this like psychological and spiritual aspect of my own death cycle of the ego and all of that, right? So I went through that when I first moved here. And then 2021 had this injury that really got me in touch with my body. And even still, I was not feeling safe to the depths of my core, in my being, in my body. And then going through all of these things in the winter, I was really given this experience and opportunity on a plate. And I could either digest the meal and actually take it in as something that could be a beautiful part of my journey, or I could dismiss it. And I chose to look at it and really take it on for the opportunity that it was. And fortunately for me, in the midst of those challenging aspects of relationships changing and no longer feeling in alignment, and me going one way, other people going other ways, and really just kind of finding a new rhythm without community, and with community, but different community, and no community at times, and really just, again, getting to that place of this deep knowing of the self. And in the midst of that time, in the midst of those hard experiences, I was introduced to some incredible humans who really, really helped me on this path that I'm on, and understanding what it means to feel safe in my body, and what it means to deeply listen to the experiences that we feel somatically, to then take them to a deeper place of knowing within what we've been through, right? What our lineage has to teach us. And what a ride that's been. It's been quite a ride. So I'm coming out of this death cycle as we speak, with spring here in our midst. I am too very much, I'm in a Portland spring. Some of the flowers are blooming, and some of them are popping their head up from the dirt, and some of them are still in waiting, because we just had to snow last week. So I'm right there with winter. I'm right there with spring, and I'm in the rhythm of just taking my time and finding my ease. But thankfully for me, thankfully enough for community and for the universe working in our favor always. The universe is always working in our favor, right? Like, so as these transitions were happening, other opportunities were interweaving themselves into my midst, and I was introduced to some incredible folks. And one of them, Kristen Miracle, she was on episode 15 of the Conscious Communion podcast, introduced me to this very profound practice. And It's TRE. She talks about it in that podcast and offers it as a service. And I highly recommend anyone who's interested to reach out to her. She is amazing. And the practice really takes you through its tension release exercises. And I realized that I was really coming from a place of not feeling safe in my body. Even though I thought I was feeling safe in my body, on the deepest levels, I wasn't. And many of us are in that same place of not feeling safe in our bodies, not feeling grounded in our experience, of not being able to deeply listen to ourselves, which in turn doesn't allow us to actually listen to another. So if we can't listen to ourselves, this goes back to what I was sharing about the 4 agreements. We're taking things personally because we're making things about us because we have things that are aggravated within our own experience that haven't been healed, that haven't been addressed, that haven't been deeply listened to, that become about the other person. And that's where perception and projections, lines get crossed and things get funky. So it's important, if we're to be in healthy relationships with ourselves and with others, to feel safe to the depths of our core and our bodies. So we can also have those attunements to know what feels good for us and what doesn't. You'll know pretty quickly when you're in space with someone if you feel safe with them or not. And if you're feeling things in your mind or your body that just don't feel comfortable, that don't feel right, listen to those things the first time. I think it's really easy to dismiss them. And on an empathic level, oftentimes empaths, people who feel deeply, that are sensitive, they have the tendency to feel things that aren't theirs, that may be from the other person. So going back, I kind of went on a rant there, but going back to this experience with TRE and then finding into that, like falling into that deep relationship with the body and finding those attunements that are super necessary for us to be enlivened to our own experience and to our own present moment, our present aspect of how we can feel resonant in what happens for us in our daily lives and our daily experiences from moment to moment. And yeah, I really was given this opportunity to get this practice introduced to me and then enacted in my daily life. And it's been revolutionary for me. It's been absolutely revolutionary. And around that same time, I was also introduced to another incredible person who has become just a really insightful human being. He was on our previous episode, Riaz Motan, and in conversation with him today, I was just talking about the craft and the aspect of creating this podcast and what that's been like. And he said the things that we really feel called to commit to and express in the world also are incredible vehicles for our own evolution that can really work us and grow us. And in the process of getting this podcast going and being introduced to folks like Kristen and Riaz, and I just am so grateful and so privileged to feel like there's this alignment that's in the happening. There's a reattuning of who I've always been and feeling as though that I'm being seen and felt and heard as I am. and knowing that it's okay if not everyone accepts me. It's okay if not everyone sees me as I am, because that's not my job. It's not my job to make people see me as I am. My job is to stand in my truth and to speak my story and share my craft, my art through conversation, through storytelling, through whatever it may be, but using it with all my authentic ability, and knowing that going to my altar every single morning and praying and sitting with myself and crying and honoring the fucking hard places that feel dirty and yucky, but still giving them a place to live, makes it worth the while. It makes it worth the while for sure. And so, yeah, here we are. I'm super grateful again to just be at the 20th episode and to be recording with folks. And I have some really, really incredible guests that are going to be on the podcast very soon. But I really wanted to use the 20th episode to just give you a check-in, just tell you where I'm at. The process to creating this has not been fucking easy, nor has my life. Yet, in the midst of these moments of me crying on the floor and feeling like a puddle of mush, feeling like I don't belong, feeling like I'm not enough, I've also been able to come back to this sweet remembrance that I am enough just as I am, and so are you. I am exactly what I am, and how I see myself and perceive myself matters. Feeling safety and security within my own experience, within my own body, is vital to receiving others in their authentic capacity. Means everything. Because when we do that work for ourselves, then we create more acceptance and love and expansion for everyone else. And don't we want to be those mirrors? Don't we want to be the mirrors that create more space for others to thrive? I do. This is definitely the root to what this mission for this podcast is. My mom and I had an incredible conversation not too long ago. And she was sharing with me that the podcast makes her uncomfortable. And I just asked why. I said, why does it make you uncomfortable? And she said, it's not the podcast that makes me uncomfortable. It's how transparent you are. It's how honest you are. And I said, I get that. Part of our culture is to not talk about things. It's to not express these parts of ourselves. And I think more than anything, what I grew up with was people having these reactions and that being posed as truth, that being masked as truth. Reactions aren't truth until we sit with those reactions and understand what they are and where they're coming from. And so my mom and I just had this really sweet conversation around what that looks like and what transparency and vulnerability can be like. And I just shared with her, I said, Mom, I know that you weren't taught or shown how to be vulnerable and to share your voice and to speak your truth because it wasn't what was modeled. However, I'm doing this for you, and I'm doing this for grandma, and I'm doing this for my great grandma, and I'm doing this for all the women that came before me. And I get to change this paradigm by speaking my truth and sharing my story in a vulnerable way to make space for those that come after me. And what an honor that is. What an honor it is to deeply, deeply, deeply see myself, to look at all the shit, to feel all the things, to go back to the moments of my life, of my experience, to reparent myself in ways that, or in moments where I didn't feel safe, to then go and sit with myself in those tender moments that shaped me and deeply changed me, to then revisit those places and those somatic aspects of the body where, fuck, I feel that in my chest, or I feel that in my heart center. Where's that from? That sense of not belonging, that sense of feeling lonely. Oh, well, that's coming from this experience, whatever it may have been. So much of the experience that I was going through that I mentioned in January that was hard with relationships, whatever, not sharing the details. However, it brought me back to these moments of feeling so unseen by friends when I was a child and not feeling understood. And fuck, that hurts when you're a kid and you want to be seen and known and understood. And then you start to mold and move and act in other ways that aren't yours. Like, those aren't your truths to embody. And that has been what I've taken away from this podcast, from this winter, more than anything, above all else. It's vital that we each stand in our truth, stand in our knowing, stand in the embodiment of what we came here to do, what our unique thing is, what enlivens us, what brings us to life, what's our light. We all have it. We all have a creative spark that is what can take us to these deeper truths, these deeper knowings of ourself and the essence that lies within. And mine is rooted in liberation. It is rooted in truth. It is rooted in this incredible aspect of not needing anyone to fucking validate me but myself. I am who I am, and I know who I am. And may we all feel that. May we all get to that place. Let me tell you, this winter was fucking rough. It was rough. But if that was my takeaway, I wouldn't trade anything. I wouldn't trade anything for that experience, for that knowing. And sometimes we have these things, these experiences that come into our life to shape us. And thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for the heat that comes in to shake shit up, to shake things up. And yeah, it's just what an honor it is to be here and to be sharing my voice, sharing my story, sharing my truth. I hope it's met well. You know, I always want it to be met well. People have the tendency to misunderstand what they don't know. And I want this space to be a place of questions and curiosity and open dialogue. I no longer prescribe to the things that aren't in alignment with me. Like, I prescribe always to more conversation and more questions and the ability to stay curious and stay open. But if there are aspects of other parts of people that can't accept me for who I am or another for who they are, I don't really have tolerance for that anymore. I'm all in the business of like radical acceptance for ourselves and for each other. But it first starts with us. So this podcast has always been about that because that's where my heart has always been. But as I've been introduced to this other part of myself, I shouldn't even say introduced, I've come back to the return to this girl that has always been in this part of my heart and part of my soul. This is who I was when I was a little girl. I used to run around with a little recorder and record people and have conversation with folks. This has always been me. I love hard. I love conversations. I'm curious. I have questions. And at the core of it all, I want to connect people. I want to have everyone feel that they're loved. But we have to love ourselves first before we can feel the love that we could potentially receive from another. So, as long-winded way of saying I am grateful for this being the 20th episode. Really, we just wanted to share where I'm at and just give some insight because it all looks glamorous from the outside of not seeing the bloopers, right? And you're only seeing the shiny aspects of what social media presents or what YouTube has on YouTube, but this has been hard amidst other hard things. And here I am. And I would encourage you, wherever you're at, to take a close look at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and know that you are the one. You are the one. You are the only one that can love you the way that you can love you. You are the only one that can know your truths, your depths, the way that you can know those things, those depths, those truths. And what a privilege it is to feel safe in even the hardest of things, the hardest of experiences, to still feel safe. Because you, at the end of the day, can have the opportunity to know yourself and love yourself. It takes work. It's not hard. It's not hard. It is hard. It's probably one of the hardest things you can do, actually. So often we can have grace for another easier than we can for ourselves. It's almost more challenging to look at ourselves and have that grace and compassion for ourselves more than the next person. Can be more challenging. But ease up on yourself. Once we ease up on ourselves and once we come to those deep places of feeling safe, we can deeply listen to the calls of our heart. And when we listen to the calls of our heart, our creativity comes online. And that's when the magic hits. But so much of it is in staying open and staying curious. I would really encourage you to just take some time to love on yourself, love on you, and be introduced to the deep parts of your childlike wonder that have been offline for some time. You know, I was really fortunate enough to take some time and read old journals, and I read some journals that I have from when I was 19, and they were all about creating heaven on earth. These dreams of being and embodying love. And that's just been my heart for so long. And I haven't done it perfect. None of us ever will. But I will die trying to make others feel loved while I continuously show up for myself and love every aspect of me. All the shit and all the glory. They go hand in hand. And how lucky are we to just watch it turn into whatever it wants to turn into, whatever spirit wants to mold it into. So, yep, it's been a hard winter, but spring is upon us. I'm grateful. Thanks for being on the ride with me on this journey. 20 episodes of the Conscious Communion podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing all the more. There's some sweet podcasts that are already recorded and edited and ready to be out in the airwaves soon. Super grateful for you sharing your time and your energy with me today. If you're willing, I would really be so appreciative if you are feeling the vibe, if you're enjoying the podcast and you've been listening and you've been following the ride, to share whatever conversation resonates, and to take 5 minutes of your time to leave a review. Reviews really help spread the word, and I would be so greatly appreciative to you taking the time and to writing a review. I appreciate you. I love you. I honor you. And wherever you're at in your journey, I want to embolden you in your path to feel so lit up, to love yourself on the deepest level, to know yourself on the deepest level, and to be reminded of who you are to the core of your existence, and to not let others scare or shake or move you into being something that you're not. Know who you are and love that part of you and every other part of you with all of you, with all of yourself. You're fully worth it. I love you. I honor you. I cherish you. All the peace, all the blessings. Thank you again. Hey there, it's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too, so if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.